Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Live at 5. This is a stream that I do every single day on this channel, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And sometimes we do the news, and sometimes I just talk about what's on my mind. Today, we have a very special guest from libertyblock.com. We have Alu, who has come on to talk to us about the New Hampshire secession movement. There's movement, no pun intended, on the secession movement in New Hampshire. It is not just but a hope and a dream. There is actually stuff happening in the state, and we're going to get an amazing update from Alu on that. But before we get into that, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of a couple things that are going on. Let me just get my screen up. First off, I want to bring your attention over to activelyunwoke.com. This is a website that I've just launched this week, partially to promote my book that's coming up, which if you guys haven't pre-ordered it, it is available on Amazon and non-Amazon options right now. I added some non-Amazon options just because you guys don't want to buy on Amazon, which is totally fine. But the hardcover is available for pre-order. It is a book filled with case studies and practical things that you can do to fight back against the woke chaos in your life. I had a great time writing this book. I'm very excited about it. So please make sure you order the book if you haven't already. And while you're on activelyunwoke.com, head over to the live events section because I've got a few things coming up. Number one, on February 1st, I'm going to be doing a introductory course about critical race theory. So if you're brand new to critical race theory, if you've just heard about this thing, critical race theory, and you don't really know what that is, I'm going to be giving an introductory private webinar where I will explain it at the most basic level in totally human terms so that anyone can understand it and be able to explain it to their friends and family members. I'm going to give you examples of what critical race theory is and how it shows up in the real world. You can register for that on activelyunwoke.com. But more importantly, because I know many of you understand critical race theory, please pass it on to your friends and family and stuff like that. That would be really great because we want to make sure as many people as possible know about what this is. Cider says the Federalist and the Daily Wire stole my unwoke bingo. I am shocked that the Daily Wire would steal something from me, considering they also stole cameras in classrooms. I am shocked that this would occur on the right. Anyway, we'll complain about that later because I've got another fantastic webinar coming up at on February 11th. And this I'm going to bring in Nicole Solis, who is the mom in Rhode Island that got sued for asking the school what they were teaching her 5-year-old daughter. Nicole is going to teach you how to do public records requests, and she's going to teach you the keywords that you need to ask for and specifically how you do them so you can figure out what information the schools are hiding from you. We need to create an army of people all over the country doing public records requests from schools. They are one of the most impactful things that we can possibly do to expose what's going on. And so we're going to do a free webinar on that on February 11th. Of course, if you want to support the work I'm doing and help keep me in this game and, eating and all that good stuff because I need to feed myself somehow, please consider becoming a member on my Locals site. On Locals, we do lots of amazing things. We had a 4-hour Zoom call today. 4 hours my community was on Zoom. It was awesome. It flew right by because it was one of the best calls. But you can join my Locals by heading over to kb.locals.com/support. You can do it for $5 a month, so less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts these days as well. You can do it for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. And if you make a one-time gift through my Locals instead of doing PayPal or crypto, and I do have all those options, and of course I appreciate all the support I get, but if you make gifts through Locals, you also get access to all the exclusive features and perks of Locals for the duration of that gift. So it is the platform I prefer to use for that. All right, without further ado, let's bring on my friend, the founder of libertyblock.com, which is a great website with lots of resources, and including this resource where he has 89 reasons that New Hampshire should secede. And he's going to give us an update on the secession movement. Alu, welcome to the platform. So happy to have you back. How are you?
Great. Thank you very much for having me back, and congratulations on your book. And I saw that you posted your website about being unwoke. I'm going to have to add that to the list of awesome websites on Liberty Block. And I'm going to check out your site and pre-order your book as soon as I get a chance.
Oh, I really appreciate that. I think that's amazing, and thank you for that. So let's get an update. So some people think when we talk about the secession movement in New Hampshire, it's just kind of like a joke, and there are funny T-shirts, and that's all fine, well and good. But this is actually a real thing. This is actually something that is making its way through the State House. Can you give us an update on where we are?
Excellent. Yeah, this is not a joke. It's 100% serious. We, at least a few thousand of us committed activists, maybe tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands in New Hampshire, really do want to leave DC. And as I explained in that article, which is now up to 89 reasons to divorce DC, and in the few books that I have back here, it is a very serious issue. And there are many reasons to leave DC. And it's extremely important that we do while we still have some freedom. Every day, it seems, DC does more things to violate our natural rights. As far as the update, the legislation, which is called CACR 32, it would be a constitutional amendment, has a public hearing in the State Federal Relations Committee tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. We're going to have a press conference with myself and the co-sponsors and the sponsor of the bill at 3 p.m. at the LOB right before the hearing. And at 2 p.m., an hour before that, we're going to have a rally probably right in front of the State House where we usually do big protests. And that'll just be a good grand old time like always. Hopefully the weather will cooperate, won't be too freezing or rainy. I know people will show up anyway, but we're hoping to get a few hundred, maybe over 1,000 people. It's hard to know how many, but hopefully over 1,000 show up to the rally and then to the hearing as well.
Well, I checked it on the weather. It looks like it's probably going to be okay, but I am definitely going to try to make it up there for it. So what can people expect at the, so the rally starts at 2 and then you have a press conference at 3 and then the committee hearing starts at 3:30. What can people expect tomorrow at the rally?
Well, we have a few plans for the rally that I'm super excited about, to be honest. So this is going to be a rally about state independence, about how we in New Hampshire believe that people like Alu, Carlin, people in Concord can run our lives individually better than people in DC, like Biden and Pelosi and Schumer. So it's that simple. At the rally, we're going to be, we might have some speakers, I don't even know, but we're going to be giving out a few things. I heard they're going to be giving out around $2,000 worth of gold backs. And the weird backstory behind that is one of the impediments to proposing legislation to leave the Union throughout the past few years. Apparently, according to some super duper principled anarchists who make me look like chopped liver, these anarchists who are really, and I'm principled voluntarist, but they didn't want to submit a bill because they figured in their math that every bill costs the taxpayers around $2,000, which I would guesstimate every new bill costs around $17 maybe, because the committees are there hearing bills and the average bill is heard for like a few minutes or an hour. So, and they're paid like a few pennies an hour, obviously, or like nothing. They're paid $100 a year. So every bill doesn't cost that much. Maybe it'll be like closer to $17, but someone did the math and figured every new bill costs taxpayers $2,000. So unless they could compensate taxpayers somehow, give back to the taxpayers $2,000, they're never going to submit a bill. So pretty much, long story short, Ian and a bunch of nice guys at Free Talk Live and a few others and keen liberty activists said they'll underwrite that for sure. So they're going to be giving out $2,000 to random New Hampshire citizens to give back for what they did by proposing this bill. So that's the weird story. I wouldn't have gone that far as like not wanting to propose a bill unless I could pay for it. But anyway, so they're going to be giving out $2,000 worth of gold backs if you're at the rally, apparently. So I don't want to like bribe people to come. People should come to support independence, but I just remembered that Ian mentioned that. So,
hey, a little bribe never hurt anyone. Let's be honest.
Yeah. But in addition to that, we have a few hundred New Hampshire flags because a lot of people will come and they'll bring their more conservative friends who aren't yet totally on board with independence and don't yet understand the American flag kind of represents the American government, like Biden. And we're not going to be big fans of Biden there. Obviously, we want to leave the Union.
No.
We're not big fans of anyone in DC, especially Biden, Trump, Clinton, Obama, Pelosi. So if people come with American flags, we'll kindly ask them to trade. We'll take their American flag and we'll give them a New Hampshire flag that we can wave at the rally. So hopefully at the rally, we'll have hundreds of people waving New Hampshire flags and no empire, tyrannical federal government DC flags at all. So that's another thing. Also, a lot of people will bring their conservative friends. They're pro-liberty, pro-independence, or independent or Democrat, whatever they are. If they're pro-independence, some of their friends may come to the rally with them for the first time to a liberty protest, and they might want to sing the Pledge of Allegiance or say the Pledge of Allegiance or sing pro-DC politician songs. No, we have a plan for that. Instead of that pro-DC song saying, I pledge allegiance to Biden, the Union is indivisible, with liberty and justice for all except politicians. Instead of singing that song, what we're going to do is we actually found a song that was written decades ago that is essentially a New Hampshire national anthem. We touched it up a little bit to make it a bit better. And we have printed out hundreds of song sheets, and we're going to be singing that as well.
Oh, very, awesome. Very and
yep.
Isn't there also a song written about, is it about Porkfest or is it about New Hampshire? Which is the song?
This is not about Porkfest. It's just a song of how great New Hampshire is and about independence.
No, but sorry, this is, and I'm doing this off the top of my head because I didn't know there was going to be an official song at this rally, which I'm really excited about. But like, isn't there like a music video or something about New Hampshire, like "Live Free or Die"? Is that what it is?
There are probably a few. Yeah, there was something going around a few months ago. Some activists, either Justin or Jeremy or someone, posted it. And yeah, that's a song. So that song is called "Live Free or Die," I believe. It was written a few decades ago. So we touched it up a little bit to make it a bit better. It was already a phenomenal song about live free or die, about freedom, independence from Britain, and independence from the Union. So we're going to be handing out song sheets, showing people the very simple tune, and we can all sing it together maybe a few times throughout the rally. So I'm super excited for that too. So we'll have New Hampshire flags. And again, a new nation will lead everything, including a new national anthem, right? So this could be tentatively the interim national anthem until we write our own from scratch, because this is really borrowed from an artist in the 70s, I believe. So maybe we'll write one from scratch. And obviously we want to brainstorm all the good musical artists and singer-songwriters together. But this could do for now. It's really good for now.
That "Live Free or Die" song is catchy. I literally have it in my head right now. I'm like, maybe I should Google it and we should play it on the stream.
Very catchy, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna yeah. So we're gonna have flags, we're gonna have singing, and then maybe some speakers at the rally too.
Yeah, I don't know what the plan is. You know how libertarians are. We're very decentralized, for better or for worse. So I assume there's a good chance there will be speakers. Anytime someone gives me a chance to speak, I'll do it because I love talking. So, maybe we'll do that, because the press conference that Mike Silvio is setting up, he's the prime sponsor of legislation. He said the press conference will be like 15 minutes. And there's a lot to say, obviously. At the hearing, we will essentially have as much time as we want, and every speaker will be able to speak. They won't all get to speak as long as they want. If there are 1,000 speakers, they're going to limit it to 2 or 3 minutes per speaker. And that's the chairman's of the committee's his decision. But everyone will get a chance to speak. So the hearing will have more time, but the press conference is short. So maybe at the rally, some will speak as well. I don't know. We also going to have a lot of signs. I have a few signs. I just made another sign last night. I think it says, "Vote yes on independence, vote yes on CACR 32. So bring your Let's Go Brandon signs, bring your NH exit signs, secession signs, any pro-freedom sign is fine. If it's an American flag, probably not really going to make a lot of sense, because we want to leave the Union. But any pro-freedom flag or sign, definitely bring that too.
Now, why should someone, I have this guy in the chat here, said, "I do not support secession from the Republic. I support reform within the Republic." So why should someone support secession over trying to change the system?
Yeah. So thank you, whoever made that question. So this is the most common question or pushback that we get. They say, and I used to say the same thing for years. They say, let's just fix America. Let's fix America. Let's all unite. Let's, elect some better people to Congress. And that's why I wrote this book. Let me find it here for you. The Blueprint for Liberty.
All sorts of books.
And this is literally written for that guy. What was that guy's name?
That guy is FYouTube 10.5. So I like it. I appreciate his name.
Okay, FYouTube 10.5. I wrote this book for you. Please go pick it up. It's like $10 on Amazon. You can afford it. I'm sure you have rich friends like Harlan. I mean, I'm sure you have rich friends.
I don't have rich friends. My God.
No, I meant you're the rich one. I meant. Yeah. So this book goes through. It explains in every single issue. It goes from guns to taxes to regulations to education policy, drug policy, police, everything, surveillance. It explains why every single day for the past 240 years has shown that the trend of government is to grow and almost never to shrink. Yes, there were tiny blips that got a tiny bit better for temporarily, but almost consistently, if you look at the line from 1776 to now, almost every single day, everything gets worse in DC. We've tried doing what he said. He said, try to reform it. Ask him, what does he mean by reform? Elect better people. We have tried as hard as we could to elect the best people to Congress and put the best judges there and the best people working in DC. Every day, we've tried as hard as we could, right? We couldn't do any more. We donate all the spare money we have to candidates for Congress. Either they don't win or they win and they become like Rubio and Ted Cruz and Dan Crenshaw, right? So they become part of the system. And again, it's very important, and I explained in this book a little bit, I don't think Dan Crenshaw is stupid or evil or unprincipled. He is the average person. Maybe he's braver than average because he was, a wounded warrior. But every person in the universe, including you and me, even the most principled people in the world, when they go to Congress, the cost of success in politics, and to be in Congress, you have to get a lot of success. The cost of success is your own integrity. I've said this a million times. I'm going to explain this in the book. Hopefully, in my dreams, one day in decades, I'll have time to write another book. It'll be a long book explaining politics. And I've realized this in years running myself. And to get success, you have to give up your own integrity. You have to do it. Some lose integrity in weeks. Some it takes a few years. But everyone, every politician in the universe always has, go back to Caesar, go back to Alexander the Great, go back to Napoleon. Everyone who gets power loses their integrity, especially in politics. At least a king doesn't have to worry about elections. When you have to worry about elections next year, you lose your integrity because you sell it out to win the next election. So even Crenshaw, who was amazing, strong, superstar, liberty conservative, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, even Rand Paul, almost every single person loses a tremendous amount of integrity. Rand Paul still supports freedom a lot, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Senator Paul. But he's also supported a lot of tyranny, right? So anyone, even you and me, and I'm the only one in the world who has the humility to admit that even I would become a typical unprincipled piece of crap politician if I were in DC. So that's the long answer to his question. Anyone who goes to DC, we've tried this for 240 years, and it's only gotten worse every single day. What is the definition of insanity? Look it up in the dictionary. It says doing the same thing every day for 240 years and expecting a different result, right? So if he can convince me that the trend that's gone like this for 240 years every day is suddenly going to change because one person like the great Caroline Leavitt or Timmy Baxter is going to go to Congress and fix the world, then convince me, and I'm open to being convinced. But again, everything I've learned so far, and we're going to talk about in these articles in the books, has shown me that I was even more right than I thought. DC is even more far gone than I thought. There's zero way anyone in the world can save it. Imagine a pro-freedom conservative, bombastic, crazy outsider who's a self-made billionaire, goes to DC and becomes president. He's not bought by anyone, doesn't even care. He's crazy, has a big backbone, doesn't mind fighting. He goes to DC for president. Surely he'll fix the entire country in 4 years, right? Yeah.
No, he got totally eaten by it. Didn't do a dang thing. Well, no, I shouldn't say he didn't do a dang. Because he did do stuff that I liked, but he didn't. He did not drain the swamp. He did not drain the swamp for sure.
Things kept going and or were made worse. And he did a few things that were worse than ever, like the bump stock ban and a few others. But he did a few good things as well, which I've written about. But overall, the union we live in now is roughly as bad, probably worse than it was 5 years ago, right? So Trump did not save the world. He didn't abolish the 400 federal agencies, all of which are unconstitutional. He didn't abolish any of them, right? So if we get someone like, DeSantis will save us, Kristi Noem will save us, Ted Cruz will save us, Rand Paul will save us, none of them. If Rand Paul were made president, if Thomas Massie were made president, if I were made president, I couldn't save it. Because again, the deep state, the surveillance state, Congress, the courts, the regulatory state, the civil service, you cannot fix it. There's too much in the swamp. No one in the world, not even Jesus, God, Thor, nobody can fix DC. Not even literally if you and I were president and vice president. We couldn't do it, and I admit it. I'm the only one who admits it. Everyone else says, elect me to DC and I'll fix the world. It cannot be fixed. Again, I've written like 5 books explaining now. The next book I'm going to submit in about a week explains just criminal justice. The reason why almost every issue in the universe of criminal justice, due process violations, civil asset forfeiture, police brutality, almost all of them are federal issues. They stem from DC. DC has created them. Federal doctrines, federal laws, federal court case precedents, almost every issue with just criminal justice. So if you're just an ACLU kind of person who's very focused on criminal justice, if you want to do one single thing to improve criminal justice the most, it's secession. That's what it is. And I explain that in this long 45,000 word book that's going to come out soon. So almost every issue, taxes, corona fascism, criminal justice, gun rights, obviously, almost every issue comes from DC. So yes, when we sever ties with DC, almost everything in the world that's bad, it goes away, including Sununu, who's in New Hampshire, and he's a state person and he's bad. Yes, that being said, once we sever ties with DC, he'll become a lot better for a lot of reasons, as I explained in the book. He won't be looking to DC to higher office anymore. He won't be getting money and soft and hard coercion from federal government because we won't have any ties with them. So he will be a lot better, and he'll be a better statesman because all of our activists right now in New Hampshire who are they're splitting their time and money and resources between campaigning for DC stuff and campaigning with state stuff. All their focus will be on Concord, meaning we'll have thousands more man hours and billions more dollars a year going into liberty activism in Concord. Imagine what you could do if you had thousands more man hours a week.
Do you have any sense of how Sununu feels about the bill?
I have no idea. I don't think he's commented on it. I would be 99% sure he would be opposed to it because number one, because he's a statist and this is a pro-liberty bill. But more importantly is he wants to go to DC and be a senator and then president of the United States.
Well, so he does, but he didn't want to go to DC to be a senator right now because he didn't want to help the Republicans win, according to his statement last night.
Yeah, I don't know. It could have been that because he's a Democrat. So that's a good point. If he went to DC, he would have to kind of vote with McConnell, or he could vote with like Collins and Murkowski, which is kind of what I would expect. But he would feel some pressure, and he has no spine, so he would feel some pressure to be with McConnell, some to be with Schumer, and he would be split and have to make a hard decision. So, and he would get a lot of pushback from New Hampshire citizens. There's that, but also I think, to be honest, my first thought when he said he's not going to run for Senate, after we all were pretty sure for the last year he was going to run for Senate, my first thought was that he knows his popularity has plummeted from like 80% approval rating to like 20 or 30. Horrific.
That's what I thought too. I was like, he knows he wouldn't win given the state of where things are at right now, and he wants to bet on it next time rather than doing it this time. That was my initial thought, and everyone was like, Carlin, he would obviously win.
Yeah, every Democrat hates him because he has an R by his name. Even if he acts like a Democrat for the most part, Democrats hate everyone with an R by their name. We saw that with Bush and everyone else going back decades. The independents mostly hate him, I believe. Conservatives all hate him. I've been told, I've heard on good authority, almost every single conservative in Concord, in politics, in the GOP, and activists hate him very, very, very much. So almost nobody likes him. There are like 5 people who like him, and they're his inner circle. Almost nobody, no one outside of his inner circle likes him, put it that way. So he has almost no support on the GOP side, which is, again, there's a bit of an image there, like a facade where the emperor has no clothes. But once people realize it, it's kind of over for him. So he's kind of on a paper house or something now. People, he thinks he's popular, and there's an impression he's popular, and that's what makes him popular. But if you ask everyone who actually knows his policies, like you've talked about in your channel, how bad he is, almost nobody actually supports his policies.
Exactly. So we got a couple super chats. Nick H says, DC will force to keep New Hampshire in the Union. Be prepared. Let's talk about that one in a second. But I think
I wrote a book for you.
Well, and I have this one from Anita Stout where she didn't put it in her super chat, but I think that this is what she wanted to put in her super chat. So how will New Hampshire do better with its politicians? So if I could just kind of summarize what you just said and tell me if I've got it correct. The premise is that if we secede from DC, our local politicians, because now they would all be local, will actually be able to focus on New Hampshire rather than moving that next step up of the rung and like thinking about being a congressman or being a senator or being president, as Sununu is obviously planning to do someday. Like they'll be able to focus on our stuff here rather than what's going on in DC. Is that the answer?
Yes, and possibly the bigger reason that I think our politicians will be more pro-liberty is just the activists. We have tremendous amount of activism in New Hampshire, and all of our time and money and energy and resources right now is split. All my friends are donating their money, half to DC politicians, candidates for Congress and Senate, and half to people in the state. Once DC no longer exists in our minds because we're not in the union anymore, all of that money we donate, $5 here, $10 there, knocking on doors here, millions here and there, all of our energy and focus will be on state and local races. So imagine right now, as far as multiplying the effect of our activism, right now our activism has, let's say, a total of $1 million in donations and 17,000 hours of man hours a year. We could probably double that, because right now it's split between DC and the state. Our activists, like you and me, and all of us will be focused only on state policy.
Right.
So that's another reason I think there's just the pressure of New Hampshire legislators being pressured so much more by activists will have an impact. But also those who really love the empire will move. As soon as we leave the union, there will be, a year or two or some amount of years where there's a transition period. And during that period, those who hate New Hampshire, live free or die, libertarian policies, and love the union and didn't want to leave the union, those who voted no on the ballot might move to Massachusetts to be in the union, which is fine. So I think once we do leave, it's inevitable. Once we do leave, if we pass it this year or next year and it passes on the ballot, we're leaving, I think we'll see a flood of maybe around 100 or 200,000 progressives leaving the state. And what will that do to the state? It'll make it like an 80-90% libertarian state.
That would be amazing. Naruto says New Hampshire Congress is about to introduce a bill to ban ESG scores in banking. Glenn Beck was actually talking about this on his show yesterday. Thank you for that reminder, Naruto. But I want to go back to Nick H's question. So, what happens if we end up seceding? Would DC try to force us to stay, do you think?
Yeah, we actually wrote an article about the ESG bill last night. It's a pretty good bill, so I'll link it here. I'll send it to you. So yeah, I do discuss that in the book. If we leave, I think the basic answer is there could be 3 responses from the federal government. Once CSER 32 or something like it passes, and there's a mandate, 3/5 of the House and Senate, 2/3 of the people voted, 67% at least voted to leave the union, it will be very hard. There's a mandate. It will be hard for the federal government to ignore that. Now, they will. The courts will say it's unconstitutional. That's fine. I'm 100% sure that'll happen. Federal court will do that. But again, New Hampshire, once we pass that, we'll be thinking, our people in the state and our politicians will be thinking, we don't care what a federal court says in another country. We don't care what the court in India say. Literally doesn't matter to us. So it's too late. We're gone. Now, the federal government's response militarily, someone said they'll use force. I totally addressed that in the book in a few chapters. Either the three different responses they would have is either they let us go peacefully, they're sad, but they let us go. It's a divorce. It is what it is. Or they fight us militarily. And if they fight us, the two options are win or lose. So either they let us go, they fight and win, or they fight and lose. If they let us go, great. If they fight and they kill us all, then we're all dead. We won't have to worry because we'll be dead. Or we'll be, subjugated.
Not ideal, but probably, better of the two options, maybe.
Yeah. And well, the third option is that there's a military war and we win and we gain independence, like we did with Britain. But we're the underdog. Yeah, we were the underdog against Britain, the most powerful empire in existence at that time. And we were the underdog of just a few drunken 23-year-old cowboys with muskets. And we beat them, right? So, the French helped a little bit. And in this case, other countries may help us too. But they were the underdog back then, and 3% of them fought and beat the British. We're the underdog now. But this being said, obviously the war 300 years later will be a lot different. And I thought about it. First, I thought they would beat us in a war. Then I thought, what would they do? Nuke us or bomb the entire state of New Hampshire? They couldn't do that. It would be the worst PR in history of existence. Even with their media spin, it would be terrible. But also, it would kill the 30% who voted to stay in the Union. Democrats, it would kill them too. It would kill people in Maine and Massachusetts and maybe even D.C. if it's like a nuke type of bomb. It would kill D.C., right? So they wouldn't bomb us. They would have to go targeted door to door and kill everyone. I think we all understand why they can't go door to door and kill 1.3 million people in New Hampshire, who are the most well-armed people in the world, right? Go into houses, it's not going to happen.
And I think the PR of it all, especially with social media, there would be videos posted all over social media of people showing up armed. It would be a PR disaster for them if they tried to do that.
Yes. Nowadays, when things go around the world in literally seconds, 1 or 2 seconds, people are live. Obviously, we're all live on Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube. Even if YouTube shuts it down, we have so many other open source and block decentralized types of things that blocks out the federal government tyranny. This will be around the world in around 5-10 seconds when they rolled in tanks. Meaning a few minutes later, either Russia or China, who doesn't love freedom, but they do hate the U.S. government, they would say, wait, we have a chance to fight the U.S. government. We would love a chance to fight them and support the rebels, right? So right now, what Russia is most likely doing, not officially, but what Russia is, we all know they're doing, they're helping the rebels who are fighting the Ukrainian government. Russian government hates the Ukrainian government, just like other former USSR states. So Russia will help any rebels fighting their enemies. Enemy of the enemy is my friend. So very much like that with Russia. So I don't know about China. Again, I don't trust Putin or Xi Jinping. That's not what I'm saying. But I think there is, I'm not betting on it, but there's a pretty good chance, I think, some realistic chance that if we did leave and the U.S. military and the soldiers actually obeyed the orders to kill their own brothers and sisters, which, it'll be unfortunate, that'll be sad. But if they do, I think there's a pretty good chance within seconds, Russia would start scrambling fighter jets here as well. And then the U.S. government wouldn't want a real bloody war. They don't want a really hot war on their soil. Hasn't happened in who knows how many years. So I don't think it's very likely. As far as war, the one likely thing that they could do that could hurt us is embargo. And we discussed that a lot. That's the one biggest question. And it is, to be fair, the most difficult question for me to answer. If they embargo us, it'll hurt our economy, obviously. We have specialization, meaning we trade with those who specialize in various products. We make products, we trade with others, and we get both products. Now, if they do an embargo, that's an act of war. So again, we're back to this. So do you think that the DC government would declare war on us for leaving them? So if your wife divorces you, would you declare war and or kill her? Well, if you do, that's more of a sign that she should leave because they're a violent psychopath, right? So I don't think they would declare war, but it's certainly a possibility that we should be prepared for at least a little bit as far as embargo. If they embargo us and blockade our ports and the Canadian border and borders with Vermont, Maine, and Massachusetts, that would be a declaration of war, and it would likely become a hot war. And then we're back to where we just talked about the hot war scenario. So hopefully it's all peaceful. And I don't want DC to declare war against us. We're adults. We're getting a divorce. We can not kill each other and maybe even have some trade or alliances later down the road. But the separation should be peaceful, ideally.
All right. So I want to talk about exactly how this bill works, because it's not like my understanding, and you know more about this than I do. My understanding is that the bill, if it passed, would allow New Hampshire citizens to vote on whether or not we secede, right? So it's not like they're passing a bill for secession. They're passing a bill to allow a vote for secession. Can you explain that?
Exactly. Yeah, you just explained it perfectly. There's legislation. It's called the CACR. It stands for Constitutional Amendment and Concurrent Resolution. And we have a few of these every year. They rarely pass the House and Senate. And when they go on the ballot, sometimes they pass, sometimes they don't. 2 of them actually did pass on the ballot. 70% or more voted for it a few years ago. There were 2 pretty good amendments to the Constitution. So it would have to pass the House with 3/5 of the vote. So 60%, which is 240 reps, which is every Republican plus a few Democrats. Very, very difficult to do. and it would need 3/5 in the Senate as well, which is 60%, which 60% of 24, I believe, is 15 senators, I believe. And that's every Republican and one Democrat, I believe. So it would need 15 senators. And then it would go on to the ballot. If passed, it would be on the ballot in November, when we all go to vote in the general election of November 2022, where we do have the state elections for governor, House, and Senate, and everything else. We would have a question on the ballot, and it's very simple. It would say, should New Hampshire leave the United States and proceed as an independent nation? Currently, New Hampshire, the bill always has to explain like the current status according to law, like what the difference is, what the current thing is, and what it would do it. So it says, currently we are a state in the union. Yeah, we all know that. I would hope that people know that we're a state in the union now. And it says if we leave, if this bill passes with 67%, we will leave the union. So it's a very simple bill, very, very short. So that's all, 67%. If 2/3 vote on the ballot for it, we're gone. Seemingly, as soon as they count the votes, we are gone from the union. And then we can start some real difficult, complicated, tedious negotiating as far as leaving.
Okay, so what is happening tomorrow then at the committee hearing? Because this is like the first step towards getting the House to vote on it, right?
Yeah. So I'm not the greatest expert in the world, but my understanding is this was proposed by a state rep in the House. So it's going to start in the House. I don't know if CACRs are always in the House. Maybe sometimes if they're proposed by a senator, they start in the Senate. So this is in the House, and like all bills, it takes the same route as every bill. It's like a bill. It goes to a House committee, sometimes more than one, depending on the speaker and leadership. They assign it to the most relevant committee, and if it touches on 2 subjects, they can send it to a few committees. Sometimes they might do this as a trick to help kill a bill. If one committee doesn't kill it, another committee might kill it. And by kill, I don't mean recommend killing it. I mean table it, meaning kill it. In New Hampshire, every bill, we're the best state as far as transparency in state government legislature. Every bill gets a public hearing, and every bill is supposed to and generally does get a vote in the House and or Senate. So in the chamber, it gets a House of the whole chamber, which other states don't have. They can kill it in committees very quickly without a hearing. So we're going to have a public hearing. It's tomorrow. It's here already. Leadership hates that. They don't want a public hearing. But there's really no way to avoid a public hearing. They can avoid a House vote, but they can't avoid a hearing in a committee. So this committee, the theory behind committees is it helps to streamline the process where you have 3,000-4,000 bills proposed. Not every state rep can be an expert, especially the volunteer part-time state reps. They can't all be experts in every single subject in the world. It's not realistic. So the committees generally have specialty, like the HHS committee has a few nurses on it and doctors. So the committees of state federal relations and veteran affairs has some veterans and those who might be experts in state federal relations. So it's going to this committee, and the theory is the committees ideally should look at the bill, see if it has to have some amendments, see if it's reasonable and it's a good idea. And if it's a good bill, they can recommend that it ought to pass, and then send it to the House with that recommendation. The House sees the recommendation, the full House, when they have a session day for voting. They see the recommendation, they can look at it, and they can determine to agree with the committee recommendation, or they can flip it, vote against the recommendation, and vote to do the other thing. So if they recommended killing the bill, they can vote to pass the bill. So the recommendation matters, not a ton, but not a little. I think it matters moderately, the recommendation of the committee in general. But those in the House can tell you, maybe more accurately how much it matters. It also depends on the bill. So that's the basics of how it works with the committee. Now the good thing is every committee has a public hearing where everyone who signs up does get to speak. And if there are too many speakers, they'll make another day with a hearing to continue it. So everyone gets a chance to speak. If they see hundreds of speakers, they'll move to a bigger room. Also, if they see a lot of speakers, the chairman could choose to limit the time for every speaker to 2 or 3 minutes or whatever number they want. So sometimes they'll limit it. I've been in a few where they limit it to 3 minutes, I think, and they'll buzz you and tell you to stop talking after 3 minutes. Right. So everyone gets a chance to speak, and it could be used a lot for grandstanding, for great video, for legislators and for activists, but also you can actually maybe convince a few state reps on the committee if they're on the fence. So right now in the committee of 21, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, probably not more than 5 or 6 are going to vote OTP right now supporting the bill. But if we make a compelling case and we should come out and force 1,000 of us on Thursday, tomorrow, maybe we can flip 5 more reps who are on the fence and get 11-10 officially supporting, 11-10 majority supporting ought to pass. Then the committee recommends to the House that a bill ought to pass, right? So that's why it's so important. You can affect the committee. I'm not under any illusion we're going to flip people on the committee who don't like independence and who love the union and who hate freedom, like the Democrats. I don't think it's going to happen, but we can go there and we can have some effect on them for sure.
Yeah, we want what you want to do is to make a good show of it, to make sure that as many people come to the actual committee hearing as possible, not just sitting at home on your computer, but actually being there because as you explained to me before we got started, if enough people show up to the committee hearing, then they're going to have to move to a bigger room and then the news are going to have to report on that, so it'll show that there is actually a lot of actual support for this bill, that it's not just a crazy idea, that people are actually behind it.
Yeah, what's so interesting is, like you said, you made a great point. The committee members and every representative places a lot of value on how many people are calling me and emailing me and talking to me about this issue.
Yes,
So
very
a few weeks
much.
ago, when I met with someone on the committee, they said, I haven't been getting a lot of emails. I've gotten very few about this issue, so no one cares about it. So, no one cares. A few days ago, I spoke to someone else on the committee who said they're definitely voting yes to support this bill. This person also said they've gotten a lot of emails supporting the bill. Like I think this person said hundreds of emails supporting the bill, which is great. Keep it up, guys. Again, I've explained this in every article. I explained how to email them. It's House State Federal Relations Committee at at gov. Whatever. So that email is in the articles. You can email that. One email goes to all 21 members' inbox. So 21 emails in one. Very easy. Email them. It can be short and sweet. Hi, my name is so-and-so. My family and I want you to please support CACR 32. We would love a chance to vote in independence. Please pass this legislation. And like you said, all it does is it lets us vote in independence. If they pass the legislation, we don't leave the union. They're not going to, the reps won't be hanged or anything for treason, I don't think. Although if Brody and Bill Marsh have their way, they will be hanged for treason. So yeah, I'll talk about that afterwards. They want to throw insurrectionists out of the House. And they say, technically,
oh yes, I heard about that.
Rebellion. Yeah. So that's a ridiculous bill. So email them, keep emailing them, calling them. I've spoken to the reps of the committees. You can call them, find their number, call, email. If you live in their town, walk up to them and say, please support the bill. And yeah, it's so important. You can also do remote sign-in. So if you can't make it to the meeting, you could do, and I have a video explaining that. You could, sign in for your support, like testimony there, like filling out the pink card, same thing, but online now as well. So there are a lot of ways you could show support. And if, again, a few thousand of us are supporting this legislation, I think it has a really good shot at being supported. And then it's going to go to the House. If it goes to the House with a recommendation to pass or to not be passed, either way, the House members can do what they want. And most of them will have an opinion on the issue. Some might be ambivalent or on the fence, but I think a lot of them will feel strongly yes or no in favor or against this issue. So in the House, they can flip the committee recommendation. We're going to assume the committee's probably the majority is not going to support it. So they can flip their recommendation very easily if they have the numbers and pass it in the House. So right after the committee, I'm going to be here yelling at you all to please call your state reps. So email every rep, but the important thing is calling and emailing your reps in your town. You might have 1 or 2 or 5 or 11, but find the ones in your town. Carlin and I can help you very easily find them. I'm sure you can probably find them to yourself. And after this committee, because then it goes to the full House, unless it goes to another committee, but we'll let you know about that. So call your reps because they want to hear from you. And if you say you live in their town, they will listen to you if you call or email them and tell them you want them to support this bill to give you a voice to vote on whether to sever ties with DC and divorce an abusive partner.
And I just want to echo what Alu is saying about they really do pay attention to the number of those emails that come in. I mean, I remember when I was trying to help drum up support for the anti-CRT bill last year. I mean, their state reps were emailing me literal tallies of like, here's how many emails we got in support, here's how many we got against. And they were telling me that they were literally, because of all you guys from all around the country who were supporting the anti-CRT bill in New Hampshire, they were getting a new email every single minute for like a couple days of people who were supporting that bill. And that really did make a difference. And one of the things they told me that was so interesting is they don't often see emails in support of bills. They see emails against bills. And so they actually, even if they have a similar tally of a roughly even 50-50 split between support and oppose, it actually weights more on the support because they're not used to seeing emails in support of bills. They only see emails against them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that makes sense. We oppose a lot of bills. A lot of bad bills are proposed, and I write articles opposing those bad bills. We do that a lot.
So we got the committee hearing tomorrow. We hope for a good recommendation. We hope we would flip a few more people. But even if it doesn't happen, that bill is still going to go to the House, and hopefully there would still be a roll call vote. So at least we could get a sense of like who's in favor and who's opposed. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't 100% guarantee it's going to go to the House. I mean, it should. And the chairman did tell me personally, and he's my friend, he told me that it will go to the House. He won't do any funny business and kill it. They could do a trick called table. They can do interim study. They can do a few other tricks to kill it without it going to the House. He told me he wouldn't do that. But again, there's going to be tremendous pressure. Once they realize that we're serious and we have a fair amount of support behind this, we are going to see all of the biggest forces in the universe come in and put in all the money and pressure and power to kill this bill. And with enough pressure, they can convince the committee, the chairman, everyone to table this bill, right? So there's going to be a lot of pressure. That's why we have to show up. So imagine maybe Sununu and maybe even Biden and Congress people, Pelosi, don't want to lose the union if it splits apart. If one of your slave states leaves, the union falls apart, and then you have no one to rule over. So if they start pressuring Sununu and they start pressuring the committee, maybe we can combat that pressure by showing up. So if 1,000 of us are there saying we want this bill to pass so we can vote on independence, that can combat the pressure from the other side they're getting maybe. So it's so important for us to show up.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about that other bill, the bill that it would basically like make it treason to support the secession bill. What's going on with that?
Yeah, we wrote an article about that as well. I could share it with you in the chat in a second. Pretty much the defector, so Bill Marsh, who's a Rhino Democrat who left the Republican Party a few months ago, the first thing he did was he wrote a bill to pretty much say that Mike Sylvia has to be thrown out of the House for proposing legislation to put independence on the ballot. So it's pretty much like the 14th Amendment or whatever, the part of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, I believe, that says anyone who engages in a rebellion can't be a member serving in Congress. And it's essentially like almost verbatim, I think, written in the same way. And then, interestingly, in the definitions of the bill, it says rebellion or treason is defined as someone who supports, rebelling or insurrection, and or who supports independence or like considering independence or talking about independence from the Union. So very, very directly says, if you support independence, we're going to throw you out of the House. The bill, I don't think it would pass constitutional muster. It's a ridiculous bill. So I wrote an article because it was funny, but it's not worth wasting a lot of time on or getting worried about it.
All right. Well, let's play a fun game. So, Alu, you have this article where you have 89 reasons that New Hampshire should divorce DC. So, what I want to do is I want to ask someone in the chat to pick a number between 1 and 89, and we're going to put you on the spot with a random reason, and we're going to see what your answer is and have you explain it a little bit to us. Does that sound like a fun game?
Sure.
All right, let's do it, guys. Pick a number, 1 to 89. We'll see who chats in first. I know there's a little bit of a delay. Oh, we've got our doubter. F YouTube is going to go for number 8. So let's see. Number 8 on the list. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it, and I'll put it in the chat as well, so you can peruse the list for yourself if you want more. So number 8 is once HR 51 passes into law, DC will be a state complete with 2 more hardcore socialist senators. Democrats will be in control of the Senate forever. Tell us a little bit more about that reason.
Yeah, it's a very simple one. If you actually click that purple text there, it'll go to my article on HR 51 and SB 51, which would make DC a state. And I explain there's tremendous amount of support. And in the article, I explain the bill to make DC into a state, meaning 2 senators and 1 congressperson, has 39 sponsors in the Senate. And I think it had like 200, let me find it here, like 230 sponsors in the House. So literally almost majorities just with the sponsors of the bill is almost enough to pass the bill. Biden has said multiple times he supports statehood for DC. So very close to passing. I think it passed the House the previous year, and it might have passed the Senate in a different year. So it's, again, extremely close. Is it going to pass in the next year? Possibly. Maybe in the next year or 2 it's going to pass. They just have to get their ducks in a row and get it done. So it's very likely. I would bet that in 3 years, DC will be a state, meaning 2 more U.S. senators who are full on 100% communist, because DC is the most leftist place. Like, you think California is bad? California is what, 55, 60% Democrat? DC is like 90% Democrat, meaning if you thought AOC and Schumer and Pelosi were bad, no. We're talking about people who would make Karl Marx blush. This will be 100% pure communist like Stalin. 2 more U.S. senators and 1 more congressman like that. So, yeah, it would just make elections harder to win. But to be honest, now that they're passing H.R. 1 and H.R. 4, which I think the House just passed, and the federal government has taken over elections, I don't think Republicans will win elections anymore. But again, there are so many other reasons, like I write in the Blueprint for Liberty, the book, that we should give up on the United States. So this is just one more reason to give up on the United States. So, and it's a reason we have to divorce them if we want to save freedom.
Well, and they're going to try to make Puerto Rico a state too.
Yes.
So even all the more reason. All right, let's get a different one. And I'm just scrolling back to see some other numbers. Oh, someone had to choose 69. Of course, someone chooses smartasses. Come on. All right, let's see. 69. The U.S. government puts many kids in cages at the border. New Hampshire would handle immigration in a much more sensible and humane way. So how would the independent sovereign nation of New Hampshire handle immigration?
So I wrote that one for my progressive friends, obviously, but almost everybody believes that kids shouldn't be kept in cages, which Biden built, by the way. Biden and Obama built them. And then I think Trump used some of them, and now Biden's using his own cages again, so that's great. So yeah, what's so interesting about the current immigration policy, again, I'm not an expert, but the current immigration policy of the United States government under dictator Biden seems to be that they let in tons of horrible people, the mules and the trafficking of drugs and child sex trafficking and all the other stuff that are probably involved with DC elites anyway. But they let in a lot of those, but also they do put a lot of kids in cages. So they're letting in terrible people. They're also taking innocent kids and putting them in cages and torturing them. We saw some of the pictures and video Ted Cruz took at the border. Horrific conditions, especially considering COVID. Like they're all lying on top of each other and they get like a tinfoil.
They were under a bridge. They were put under a bridge. Like it was so crazy.
Sickening. So again, once we leave the union, I wouldn't be dictator unless you make me dictator. So, but I can safely assume our legislature, who already is pretty libertarian, would be pretty much very much open immigration. So not very big on strong border controls. We would probably not be super thrilled to allow in horrible terrorists. But other than that, we would have very open immigration controls. Almost everyone in New Hampshire, especially, a lot of libertarians, but also the conservatives and the Democrats here are very much pro open immigration, I believe. So most likely, if I have to guess, I would say we'd have a very much open system. And it would be a little more humane as far as those we do catch. If we're going to release them, we won't torture them in cages. We'll keep them in some kind of place before we send them back to where they came from, a little more humanely. I don't know. But currently, the point of me writing that number 69 over there was currently, if you don't like the way CBP and ICE operate, you're not going to fix them. You're not going to sign a petition or call Joe Biden or Congressperson. Hi, Maggie Hassan. Senators don't care. They do not give a crap about what you think. You're not going to fix CBP and ICE. Never going to happen. It was very similar under Obama and Trump and Biden. People think it's all different. Very, very similar. I guarantee 99% of the employees were all the same, right? Maybe a tiny bit of shifting around. It's almost always the same. It's always really bad. They let in bad people and they keep out and torture some good people, right? And every president does that. It is what it is. We're not going to fix CBP and ICE. Never going to happen. Again, it's two big bureaucracies. I believe they're civil service, meaning unfireable, bloated billion-dollar budgets, no accountability. They're in government unions, qualified immunity. Never going to be fixed. If you want to control it, again, if you want people in Concord, your own friends, making immigration policy, all we need to do is pass CICR 32 and vote to leave the union. Very easy. Then we, people like you and me and our friends who are state reps, can control immigration policy in a sensible and humane way, as opposed to leaving it up to evil, sociopathic, demented people like Biden, Trump, Clinton, Obama, Bush, and the CBP and ICE and whatever else is going down there on the border. So yeah, if you want people like us, normal, humane, decent people, right, left, some want a little tighter border, some want more open, that's fine. We can have that debate. But if you want not Bush and Clinton and Obama and Biden and CBP and ICE to be controlling the border, you support secession.
Awesome. All right, let's see. Number 13, Alexandra wants to go number 13. And I know Alexandra would also remind you guys to mount that like button if you haven't already and you're enjoying the conversation. All right, so number 13.
Alexandra, they just want to date you. So don't mount the like button because now
if you don't like being forced to pay for the DC politicians to wage futile, endless wars in dozens of countries all over the world while veterans, women, babies, and our own communities starve on the streets, it means you want to separate from DC. So I was just watching Biden's press conference right before we got on this, and he was talking about how if Russia invades Ukraine, we're going to be amping up troops in like other NATO countries in the region. And I was like, oh, of course we are. So tell us a little bit more about that point.
I have it on good authority that if they do send troops to wage war in Ukraine and Russia, it'll only be for 15 days.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. 15 days to slow the invasion. Well, you know what Biden said? It was the weirdest thing in the world. And this is a little bit off topic, but it was just so weird in this press conference. He went on this tangent where he was asked about Putin and why Putin is like sending troops to like invade Ukraine or whatever. And Biden basically said that Putin is still mourning the loss and the breakup of the USSR. It was the weirdest thing in the world. I was like, what the hell are you even talking about, Biden? Anyway.
Yeah, so the number 13 is a really big one. I mean, that's the reason that one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people want to leave the union. And again, I said all of these reasons are big, right? So far, we saw a few of them. Go read the article for yourself. We'll link it over here. 89 reasons. Each of them, I believe, is enough reason to leave the union. Each of those reasons. And we have 89 and counting. So yeah, the endless wars is one of the biggest, though. I mean, we've written a few articles about this. We've spent $5-10 trillion just on the war on terror since 2011, since 2001. We've spent, I think, over $5 trillion. That's enough to buy like every human in the United States, like a house and a car and free college tuition and a new Porsche every day for their whole lives, right? 5 trillion is, unimaginable amount of money. We spent that much money. We've also lost millions of lives and injuries in the perpetual wars around the world. Now, again, we're fighting a war on terror. Technically, no declared wars or military operations, whatever they call it. I don't know. But currently, the United States government has military troops in literally every single one of the 200 countries on Earth, except, I believe, Cuba, North Korea, and I think China. And maybe Russia. So other than, I think, 4 nations, every single nation in the world has some amount of U.S. troops, most of which have like full-on military bases and thousands of military soldiers. So we have our people, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds who can't even touch, weed or cigarettes or alcohol in abroad, fighting with, M16s being shot at and killed by terrorists and all sorts of other people and getting diseases, not like COVID, like really actually horrible, deadly, Ebola type TB, which is TB is around the world, killing millions of people. They're exposed to horrific dangers and they come back with PTSD and, mental and physical injuries. So we're fighting perpetual wars. I'm sure, antiwar.com and others can speak a lot better than I could about the perpetual wars and just about not being an interventionist and destroying us and them and almost everything in the world. Perpetual war is one of the biggest issues, maybe the biggest issue in the world right now. It's the fact that the U.S. government can't help themselves from fighting more and more wars and perpetual wars forever. And the wars, I think this is one of the issues where everyone agrees. Some issues are 50-50, some are not. I think if you were to ask every individual, don't do a poll, ask every individual, 330 million in the United States, do you believe that the wars are ever going to end? I guarantee 99% say no. And people know this. Some are dumb, but they're bad at civics, but people understand. We've been in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, whatever countries we're in, we've been there forever, and we're going to be there forever, the United States military. It's never going to end. And if you ask them, do you want the troops to come home? I guarantee at least 90% say yes. Bring pretty much all the troops home, right? So, and then Trump ran on that, and he was very popular because of that message of bringing troops home, right? So I think this is one of those issues that actually unifies everyone, but still, because of DC, it's never going to get done. And I've written a few other articles explaining some things are 50-50, but some were like 80-90% support it, like not perpetual war, not surveillance state, and legalized cannabis. These are issues where probably 80-90% of people in the United States support. Still, Congress or the federal government, Congress doesn't pass laws anymore, so they're just a relic of the past. But DC in general has not fixed these issues because they're so slow, tyrannical. They have different motivations. They have no motivation to listen to us. They have other motivations: money, power, sex, drugs, whatever it might be, corruption. So they don't have to listen to us. So again, if you want to not be forced, and also you're paying for this, you are paying, $5 trillion to fight this war. So if you'd like to keep $30,000, $40,000 more a year and not spend millions of dollars on bombs of making Lockheed Martin and other big corrupt companies billions of dollars, dropping $1 million missiles on people who may or may not be innocent abroad. If you want to keep that money for yourself so you can, buy bread and buy a house, then you want to leave the union.
All right. So we have some naysayers in my chat, and they were bringing up, there's a couple naysayers, and a lot of people are talking about the fact that they don't like open borders. So the minute that you said like open immigration or more lax immigration in the sovereign nation of New Hampshire, I feel like the conservatives in my chat kind of were like, no. But so tell us a little bit about that. Like, how can we kind of square that?
I know I've never said this before, but I wrote a book for those naysayers.
So the Blueprint for Liberty, and you can get it on Amazon because I know some people in the chat were asking about the book.
Yeah, in the end, after the people secede, in the end of the book, I explained how would we handle immigration. And again, full disclosure, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I'm a voluntarist. I believe the government really shouldn't exist. There's no excuse for using violence against others, even for the roads. That being said, I was conservative, became more libertarian, and now I'm a voluntarist. One of the things that's still a relic that's hard for me to let go of, and I still kind of have, is border policy. So conservatives, I'm right there with you. I've been a border hawk my whole life. A part of me still is. I understand a lot of reasons why you don't want open borders. In fact, I've debated, and I still would debate open borders people, because I would love to debate them because I think they're wrong. So that's just one thing. I don't want to have totally open borders. If you're going to have a state, you have to have borders. Otherwise, it's not a state. So if we have pure anarchy, you have no state. But unless we have total anarchy, you do have to have a border. So I agree, you can't have totally open borders. The reason why I do support a strong border where you have to know who's coming in is we do have terrorists. I'm not like some libertarians. I've been in the Middle East. There are some really, really bad people who will kill you at the drop of a hat. They will. They will even kill themselves with a suicide bomb to kill you. They will kill themselves to kill you, even kill their kids with suicide vests. There is also MS-13 and other savages coming across the southern border as well. So there are people, and again, I've been in Long Island and Queens, and I know a little bit about MS-13. The tiny bit I know is really, really, really bad. Horrific, savage animals, violent murderers. I don't want them in my community, obviously. So one of them is danger. Another one of the reasons people don't like immigration is welfare. Contrary to some others, I do believe that illegal aliens in the United States cost taxpayers, 50, 100, $200 billion a year. In New Jersey alone, I think it's $12 billion a year. And that's where I used to live, so I have the numbers. So billions a year, it costs taxpayers. They do get welfare. They get Medicaid, they use hospitals and schools and all that. And New York is going to pass free college as well as free high school for illegals. So they do use welfare as well. So there's welfare, there's the danger, there's taking jobs. So a lot of conservatives believe that part of the government's responsibility is to make sure they have a well-paying job. And if we have millions coming over the border, that drives down wages because it increases supply. So there's more people willing to work, especially work for less than you. So that's another issue. I think it was a fourth issue as well. Oh yeah, voting. So they will come and vote Democrat. All those four issues are non-issues if we leave the union and start becoming a libertarian state, right? We don't have to worry about terrorists because we have 1.3 billion people with ARs. A few savages from the Middle East are not going to kill us all. It's not going to happen. You don't have to worry much about MS-13 either. Again, we have 1.3 million people with ARs. MS-13 is not going to kill us all. We don't have to worry about welfare because welfare won't exist in the free state of New Hampshire. Not in my ideal New Hampshire anyway. And voting, ideally, we will not have voting. I don't want to scare your conservatives, but in an ACAP world, we won't have voting. So it's not an issue either. So I explained in the book all four issues. Once we leave the union and become actually voluntarist, all four issues are total non-issues about immigration. So we can all agree, we can all unite, conservatives and progressives, libertarians, about having open borders because none of those issues will be issues.
Well, and the thing of it is too, is like, if you don't like it, you don't have to live in New Hampshire. You can go back and live in any of the remaining 49 or possibly 50 if they add DC, like 50 states. If we leave and they add DC, they won't even need to update the flag. It'll be perfect.
Exactly.
It'll be a nice trade. So you don't have to come here and live here if you don't want to. So we also have my friend Emphasized, who is the constant naysayer in the chat, but I still appreciate him anyway. You only did half your homework. You'll have to make a list of 89 reasons to remain in the union to have something to compare and contrast. Otherwise, you are only being tyrants. What do you say to that?
Excellent point. I don't like the nasty word she called me, tyrant, but it's a great point. I was just thinking about that. So I actually just posted a tweet and I agree. In fact, Emphasize, I am nominating you to write an article rebuttal, 89 reasons to stay in the union. I promise I will publish it. I'm the owner and editor-in-chief of Liberty Block, so I can publish it. I have that power. Write an article, I'll publish it. I'll give you a nice photo and I'll help the article and I'll publish it and I'll help you share it. So I do agree that we should have maybe both sides of it. It's a pretty good point. I own it and it's opinion, so I don't have to, but I do like whenever someone mentions anything, I say, write a rebuttal, I will publish it. So I'm very open about having open debate. And I'm very open to debating secession. I've done it before, I'll do it again. I did just post on Twitter. I just posted before the show. I just happened to post, hey, here's 89 reasons to leave. Do you have 89 reasons to stay? Please let me know. So I did just make that post. I would love to write an article like that, even if it's totally against what I believe. If this person Emphasized writes an article, I promise I will publish it on the site. So thank you.
Well, there you go, Emphasize. So now the burden's on you to show up with the article. Now, Justin says the assertion that immigrants overwhelmingly vote Democrat has no statistical support. And in fact, the vast majority of Hispanic immigrants in Florida, only state to track, vote Republican. I was kind of thinking the same thing, to be honest, when you were talking about that. Do you want to rebut?
No, I agree with Justin on this. I haven't looked at the stats or anything, but I think overall Hispanics have always voted Democrat historically, but that trend is moving towards Republican. Are Republicans like Trump and DeSantis and Cruz pulling Hispanic Democrats? I don't know. Is it the fact that Democrats like Biden are scaring them away? That might be more of the cause. It might be Democrats losing the Hispanic vote more than Republicans gaining the Hispanic vote. But I agree. Democrats, if I were a standard political analyst right now who cared about national politics, I would say Democrats are hemorrhaging right now and almost in the extinction burst phase of they are dying, the Democrat Party. So I agree.
God willing.
Florida especially, a lot of Hispanic, especially from Cuba, and they know socialism and they know it sucks. So I think, I'm sure Justin's right if he has the stats that, yeah, Hispanics are not 100% Democrat, but still a lot of people who move here, I think, immigrants will vote Democrat, especially if they are marketed to in Spanish by Democrat politicians saying, vote for us, we're going to keep the welfare train going and we're going to, support more open immigration to let the rest of your family and friends come in. So I do agree there's still something to be said for Hispanic or other immigrants voting Democrat because Democrats kind of give them what they want.
Well, Adirondack guy says, can upstate New York join New Hampshire, please? I suspect they probably wouldn't because you guys have like Rochester and stuff like that in upstate New York, but you can move here. What do you say, Lou?
The first thing I would say is move here. Go to fsp.org, go to libertyblock.com, and start educating yourself about why you should move here and how to move here. FSP.org the Free State Project has a lot of phenomenal resources for moving. I left New York City, which was worse than upstate New York, but I left 4 years ago. Best decision I've ever made ever, besides for like marrying my wife. So I would say leave. But as far as the upstate New York joining, upstate New York, again, is probably very similar kind of libertarian to New Hampshire and kind of maybe Vermont. So upstate New York is pretty conservative, pretty pro-liberty. Now eventually, if we're kind of daydreaming a little bit and fantasizing, I think ultimately we might be in some kind of confederation with maybe Maine, maybe Vermont. And once New York finds a way to split itself in half from New York City, and the upper half will be like 80% pro-liberty, maybe conservative, I think there is some possibility of maybe a state. I don't want to make our state bigger. I like New Hampshire. I love the shape of New Hampshire, and it's nice and small. But some kind of confederation, and if we would do mutual trade, I'm totally fine with that. I love all people, especially those in upstate New York. I would love to work with them however we can. But the simple thing for now is move to New Hampshire.
Well, F YouTube, this is actually perfect for F YouTube's question. Carlin, you're awesome. Thank you. Question for Elliot. Couldn't the Free State movement focus on spreading into neighboring states like Vermont and Maine, becoming kingmakers against the worst aspects of federal legislation?
Yeah, excellent question. If I understand it correctly, and I think Jeremy Kaufman at the FSP on Twitter has been fighting a lot with people about this. They say the FSP is such a good idea. Let's replicate it in like 50 states. So that
defeats the point.
Yeah, literally the point of the FSP, which I think my dad and I individually both thought of the same idea of concentration of libertarians before we heard of the FSP, decades ago or a few years ago before we heard about it. We said, we're all out here losing. And I use the term dilutional futility. We're futile because we're so diluted, and we get 1 or 2% in every state. If we're all in one state, we can actually have our policies, and we can be happy, and they can be happy, and everyone's happy. So the whole point of the FSP, if you look into the FSP, it's concentrating libertarians who are losing in other states, come to a state that's already pro-liberty, and we can all win here. It's that simple. So no, I'm sorry, we can't do it in other states. Vermont is I've written articles about this. Vermont is going hard to the left. For the last few decades, they've been trending horrifically to the left. They've been moving closer to California. In 10 years, they will look like California. They had no gun laws ever. They were the first state to have permitless carry. And in the last few, they had no gun laws ever. They were the most free gun state. In the last few years, with the help of a rhino governor who wrote and passed the bills, a massive package of gun control. Now they're like a horrible gun control state. So they're trending in the wrong direction. They're becoming more and more socialist. Obviously, they love Bernie Sanders. So Vermont's bad. Maine is a lot more similar to New Hampshire, but still, I don't know if they're going in the right direction. I don't know. So yeah, I think New Hampshire is the one place. If any place will have freedom in 20 years, it'll be New Hampshire. Maybe Wyoming, maybe Florida. But my bet's on New Hampshire.
I agree. All right. So I want to go back for our last one. I want to go to the latest reason, number 89, that you've added to the list, because it's a brand new
added it a minute ago before the show.
Well, let's see. DC politicians just passed a law mandating that all vehicles made after 2026 be equipped with perpetual monitoring systems to detect impaired driving. The vehicles must also have kill switches that allow cops to turn them off at any moment. If you don't like this policy, secession is the only solution. I don't like that. That doesn't seem like a good idea.
It's so dystopian. It's disturbing. It's scary. Both of them. So we heard about this a few months ago, and then I kind of dropped the ball. I didn't realize this bill did pass. So I can't follow all the tremendous trillions of dollars of horrible spending of Build Back Broker. So one of the around $1 trillion, only a $1 trillion spending bill a few months ago did pass, a big omnibus bill or something, and this was in it. So again, it's thousands of pages. No one reads it till after the fact. So one of the provisions in it, and I heard about it before it passed, and then it did pass, is it says that every single vehicle made after 2026, I believe, in the United States has to be equipped with it doesn't specify which, but it has to have some kind of system that could do perpetual monitoring for impaired driving. So we're not sure if it'll be perpetual breathalyzer that you have to put in, a breath every 2 minutes, or some said maybe it could sense on the steering wheel, sense through your hands, like pulse oximetry or something like that. It could sense alcohol, which I don't know if technology is there yet. Or it could be things they already have in some cars that look at your eyes and they see how focused you are on the road. And if you're droopy or looking away too much, that might be an indicator you're tired or drunk or impaired or distracted. So there are a lot of technologies, but I don't know which it'll be. It might just be a breathalyzer. But it says that every vehicle will have to, after 2026, have to have some kind of perpetual impaired driving technology monitoring system that I assume will go to, inform law enforcement or the government that you are impaired, even if you're just distracted, even if you're just, messing around with a girl in the front seat or eating or tired or something. I don't know. So if you're distracted, the car, the government can choose to kill switch your car and shut it off. But don't worry, I'm sure the great people in government and cops will only use this for truly dangerous people who are like crazy, radical, anti-government insurrectionists, truly dangerous people like science deniers, like crazy people like Karlin Borsenko. Like only those kinds of people will they shut off the car because they were truly dangerous because they're insurrectionists. So people like you and me don't have anything to worry about. I'm sure they wouldn't use it against peaceful people like us.
No, I never gotten a visit by the FBI for sending a tweet. That would definitely never happen. So F YouTube, like you're emphasizing the point though, because you're saying I'm a Californian and I would move to New England if the Free State movement started spreading out. Okay, first of all, you live in California and you're putting conditions on moving to New Hampshire. Dude, you live in California. New Hampshire is awesome, and the whole point of the Free State Project is that it is a concentrated group. Like that is the point. If it starts spreading out, then it loses the concentration and it loses the power. Alu, how many state reps in the state house right now are like libertarians but like registered as Republican?
Oh, the 400, right around 100 are libertarian, depending on the issue.
Yeah. So like 25% of the state reps in the state house right now in New Hampshire are for all intents and purposes libertarian. Like that's what happens when you have a concentration of people.
So two things. Currently, New Hampshire. So he's saying let's spread again. We're not winning. We're not 100% libertarian. If New Hampshire were 100% of people here were libertarians, yes, I would allow, as the self-appointed king, I would allow some of us to go to Maine as missionaries and start, working with their legislature, maybe. But we're not quite there yet. I'm optimistic, not that optimistic. But two things I want to say. New Hampshire is the freest state in the union. I have plenty of articles. Cato and a few other centers did some studies, and they found it was the freest state. I've done my own analysis, and I have an article explaining why it's the freest state overall.
Cato also did, before you can say more on that, Cato also said in their latest kind of ranking of free states, they basically said that the way New Hampshire is trending, it's going to be really hard for any state to actually overtake us as the #1 free state.
You just totally stole my thunder.
No,
it's fine. I forget.
Take it.
What I was going to say is, again, as a paramedic, the trend of my patients is the most important thing, right? Are they trending down or up? Are they getting better or worse? So New Hampshire's the freest state, but that's not even totally necessary for me to say you should move here, because we are trending in the right direction, and no other state is trending in the direction of liberty. I know a little bit about, Wyoming and Idaho and Montana and even Florida. I have family in those places, and they're doing some good things. But overall, on the net of all the issues in the world, they're good on some issues. Wyoming is decent on crypto and some other stuff and good on guns. Florida's good on some things like fascism, although DeSantis just signed a law saying they can mandate vaccines and quarantine you if they really want. So some states are trending good in some ways, but overall, we have the most freedom and we're trending. I have articles explaining this. In the last 10 years, we have eliminated all the gun laws. We have no gun laws left anymore besides ATV carry. We've eliminated taxes, gotten rid of taxes, cut taxes. We're tearing up tolls. Tolls, get rid of them. No more tolls. So we're getting rid of plenty of tolls. We're cutting regulations, allowing homeschool people to get money back if they're in a homeschool or private school, their kids get taxpayer money back from the school system. So instead of paying for public schools if you don't want to use them. So we are doing so many things, like banning CRT, like you said, doing so many things over the last 5-10 years consistently every year, chipping away at a decent pace at authoritarianism. We're the only state doing this consistently for 10 years. And again, with more people who love liberty here, moving here, but also awakening and educating those who love liberty, who live in the state already, we are making tremendous progress. So the trend, so we are the freest state already. So move here, if you just want to enjoy freedom and you're lazy, but we have the best trend. We're trending towards liberty. So come and help us accelerate that trend.
Yeah, and part of the problem with a place like Florida, I was thinking about this earlier today. It's kind of like DeSantis didn't win by very much in Florida. And I feel like Florida has hinged all their hopes and dreams on this governor. Well, what happens if Ron DeSantis runs for president? Or what happens if Florida decides to elect Charlie Crist or whoever is running against DeSantis? And all of a sudden, all this progress that Florida has made is wiped out in one fell swoop because it is entirely, maybe not entirely, but really dependent on the governor.
Exactly. Right? So I've said this before. Florida, the advantage they have over us, people say they have DeSantis, you have dictator Sununu. Yeah, DeSantis is probably the most pro-freedom governor in the United States. Not a very high bar. He's the tallest midget, but he is the best. Other than that, the rest of Florida is not that good. The state house is in Tallahassee. If you don't live in Tallahassee, you can't go there. It's, an 18-hour drive, right, from Miami, something like that, probably 10, 15 hours. So you just can't go there every day. We can all go to Concord. That's just a geography thing. But also, we have just a better legislature as far as 400. You can go there, very open. And again, like I said, we have around 25% of our reps are Libertarian. Another 20 to 30% are conservative. And then the rest are either Democrat or independent. Whereas the legislature in Florida, not quite that good. For better or for worse, Sununu beat Feltus, the communist, by like 66 to like 33, like almost double. It was 60 to 30 or something. Whereas DeSantis won by like 50 to 49.9. So that was a little closer. As far as the actual voters, let's just look at it. A few years ago on a constitutional amendment, like 81% of New Hampshire voters voted to give taxpayers standing to sue if they misuse their taxes. And they also approved an amendment to the Constitution a few years ago in 2018, I believe, to make a privacy amendment in our Constitution, just reaffirming that we have a natural right to privacy from government intrusion. Now, they're pretty broad. Hopefully they help a bit. I don't know. What was Florida doing at the same time around 2018? Over 60% of voters in Florida, I believe, voted to make a statewide minimum wage of $15. Whereas we have no minimum wage at all. So the voters in Florida, not quite as pro-liberty as here in New Hampshire. Here in New Hampshire, 5, 10, 30% of voters are pro-liberty. In Florida, it's not quite that strong. So again, if they have a great governor and we have a great populace, I'd rather have good pro-liberty people than a pro-liberty governor. Because like you said, once he's gone, if he runs for president in 2024, which I hope he doesn't, then he's gone forever. He'll either win or lose in DC, but he's gone from Florida forever. So and then they'll get probably a statist. So overall, I think for a lot of those reasons, we're in a way better shape than Florida.
Yeah, and Justin makes a great point in the chat, too. He says, the difference is we dealt with Sununu by limiting his power. Florida embraced DeSantis by expanding his, and now when he's replaced with his successor, we'll have authoritarian power. It's like people don't think down the road, right?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, it's so sad that people don't think like the next person in this office will have those powers that I have, that I give myself. So yeah, I mean, I'm still pessimistic. I wish we'd have limited dictator Sununu's power a lot more. We've written, dozens of articles about Sununu becoming a dictator, shutting down the legislature, shutting down the state for 16 months, I believe, and making decisions as a dictator. No legislation, no nothing. I am the law. His Excellency is king and God, and listen to me. Shut down, everything. Made my wedding illegal. Postponed the wedding. It was still technically a crime to have it, and we had it. So he harmed a lot of people, got people fired from jobs, shut down the economy. He hurt us a lot. And we limited his power by limiting the state of emergency from like 90 days to like 21 times 4, which is 84 days. So, we didn't limit it that much, I don't think. So overall, I wish we would have limited more, like restricted him with handcuffs and not let him be governor anymore because he was a dictator. So I'm not that optimistic about it, but he makes a pretty good point about DeSantis's power being expanded.
He does, and so like the last concern that I see popping up in the chat over and over again. Do you want to take a guess at what one of the biggest complaints about New Hampshire is that's showing up?
As far as New Hampshire or secession?
Yeah, as far as New Hampshire.
That's too cold.
It's too cold. It's too cold. So guys, like right now, it is the middle of January in New Hampshire. There's basically no snow on the ground, and it's like 30 degrees on most days. That's not unbearable. It's just not. I don't even need to wear a proper jacket when I go outside.
If I can handle New Hampshire, anyone in the world can, because I am the most cold intolerant person almost in the world, unless you're like anemic or like sick with cancer or like dying. I have horrific vasculature, and I think I have moderate rain odds. So I am always freezing. Ask my wife. I keep the house literally 70 to 73, depending on how I'm feeling. So if the majority of the time it's around 72, 73, the house, because otherwise I feel a little cold. So I'm wearing layers and layers of Under Armour. And when I go outside, my hands lose circulation in seconds in New Hampshire. It sucks. It's not that much. It's the same as Boston, same weather system. If you've been in Boston or New York City or upstate New York is probably colder, probably more wind and more snow, but it's similar to like Boston. So it's not the North Pole or anything. Yes, I'm not going to lie. Winter sucks. We get snow. We might get a few inches of snow, a few feet of snow throughout a winter. We just got a few inches of snow. Again, not crazy. It's not like Northern Canada. It's not like,
But the rain came and took all the snow away. There was snow for like 12 hours, and then the rain came and took it away.
Yeah, I think it rained today and melted a lot of snow. It went up to like 40, 45, 46 degrees today. So some of it melted. But again, January and February does get cold. It does suck. You got to live with it. I hate snow. I hate the cold. I hate all that stuff. But I think it's one of those things you will sacrifice. And it's a barrier to the other, some people call the Florida liberty activists the sunshine libertarians. But so it's a barrier to people who, weak libertarians or statists who are progressives who are too sissy to come here. So it's a bit of a barrier, but also it does separate the boys from the men a little bit because, you're going to make some sacrifices. And it's a good reminder that we're going to make some sacrifices. It's not paradise. We're not utopian. We're not Marxists. We don't think it's utopia. It's not perfect. New Hampshire's not perfect. And it's not just, the snow. There are plenty of other issues. I hate the accents. I hate Tom Brady. I don't hate Tom Brady that much, but I do hate the accents. The cat is disgusting. But there are issues. It's never going to be perfect. We do have issues here. It is the best state. I love the state. I love my neighbors. I live in the best town in the best state in the world. I couldn't be happier. I could, because it could be better. So New Hampshire, yes, it gets cold. The winters do suck. But unless you live in Miami, you probably do have winters, unless you're like in the southern part of the United States. And people have moved here from Florida and Texas, and they say they live just fine. And that now they like the snow, they like the winter. A bunch of people move from San Diego. They love the winter here. You will survive it. It does suck sometimes, but you'll survive. Man up. If I can live with it, you can live with it. Get some gloves.
Yeah. Justin says, if the only thing keeping you from experiencing freedom in your lifetime is a jacket, then you aren't a strong enough person for me to want you here anyway. And to be honest, I kind of actually do like that little barrier that people have to get over, because the winter is not that bad. I grew up in Vermont. I've lived in New Hampshire for 10 years. You can survive it. Actually, New Hampshire takes significantly better care of the roads than Vermont ever did. That was always one of my biggest complaints about living in Vermont. And plus, we don't even pay state income or sales tax here. So that's pretty rad too. Now, Mike in the chat says, the problem with New Hampshire is there's very few mountains. Mike, you don't get this in Florida, dude. You don't get this in Florida. Come on,
we have plenty of mountains, not as big as the Rockies. So if you're from Colorado or Wyoming, you're used to 14,000 foot, or these are 5,000 feet. But we do have like the biggest mountain on the whole like east half of the Union, east of the Mississippi, Mount Washington. And it is pretty vicious up there. If you've been on top of Mount Washington, it's like the most vicious place on earth. I went up there a few months ago with my family, and I'm like, this is hell. I mean, freezing, horrific winds, horrific freezing, always raining up there, snow, and just horrible, vicious cold and snow and wind. And it was like hell, and I couldn't see anything. It was a very interesting experience up there.
Yeah, and I want to tell you guys too. So next week on Tuesday at 5 o'clock, we're going to have Dennis Pratt come on, and he's going to tell us all about Pork Fest, which is about to sell out. Dennis told me last night it's 3/4 of the way sold out. So he's going to come and talk to us about that, and that takes place up in the mountains. So if you want to experience New Hampshire in one of the most beautiful times of year, come to Pork Fest, get your tickets, and if you're not sure yet, we'll talk to Dennis about that next week. All right. One last super chat. Just T says, so no other state can secede and no other state can ever expect to be free. And if anyone everywhere can come to New Hampshire, how do you plan to keep New Hampshire free? I feel like I'm missing something. I don't want to speak for, I'll let you answer, Lou, but I think that that how I would answer that is it's not that no other state can do it necessarily, but like the liberty movement is already thriving here. The Free State Project has been around for a really long time. They've already got a lot of infrastructure built up, and it's just easier to create a concentration of people in a smaller state than it would be to do this in like every other state. It would be like they'd have to start over from scratch, and then you take the concentration of people and you push it out over a bunch of states rather than having it focused in one.
Yeah, I think he asks two good questions there, two parts of the question. The first one is, no other state can come. Why should we move there? Let's do a free state west, a free state south, and have multiple free states. We discussed that a few times during the show. The dilution is the issue, so the solution is concentration. You could join the winning team. Jess, you've been fighting your whole life and losing. I was in New York City for 10 years. I was losing. I was working with the LP and the Republicans. I was losing. You never get any wins. If you're pro-liberty in other states, unless they're in like maybe a few other states, Wyoming, maybe Oklahoma, maybe Florida, you're probably not getting very many wins. In New Hampshire, we do get some wins, and it feels really good. You can join the winning team. It sucks, to give up and retreat. You can join the winning team. Yes, I give you permission to forgive yourself, and you can join the winning team. Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers. Gronkowski joined him, and a few others joined them. It's a winning team. Pile on. We're winning.
Oh, Lou, we just lost your microphone. We lost your microphone. Oh, no. Oh, no. Hopefully it comes back. Well, guys, while we're figuring this out, please mount that like button for me if you're enjoying this chat. Are you back? I hear you now. You're good. Sorry. You're good.
Yeah. As for what was the second part of the question?
Let me see. I'll bring it back
anybody
up.
Can come here. How do we keep them out? I don't know. That's a great question. Yes.
Well, I mean, like progressives are not exactly pleased to be living in New Hampshire. Like the more libertarians that come to New Hampshire, the more pissed off the progressives get. And also you and Dennis launched the Progressive State Project.
Yes. And since then, two high-profile elected Democrats have left. The former Democrat Senate leader and gubernatorial candidate left the state a few months ago. And a few weeks after that, a Democrat sitting state rep moved out of the state, I believe. So at least two Democrat leaders, elected people or whatever have left the state. And a lot of others have left. We've seen tons of posts on Twitter saying the Free Staters have taken over the state. They're gutting government services and cutting taxes, and they're killing our public school system and taking money away. And I hate it. They're leaving. So a lot of progressives are leaving, and very few are moving here. But I don't want to rely on just that, because Jess makes a good point. I'm not going to stand on the border with a gun and a wall saying you can't enter if you're not pro-liberty. That's not feasible, obviously. So how do we prevent from moving in? I don't know. In general, and this is a big debate I've had. If I had more time, I would do a long debate with open borders people. That's why I do have reservations still to this day with open borders people, because as long as you let anyone move in, the billionaires, Soros, Obama, Oprah, and whoever else, Bloomberg, can pay a few $1 billion, so $1 million per family, to relocate to New Hampshire, and now we have another 80,000 Democrat voters, and they can flip the state back to being like Massachusetts and joining the union. So that's a serious issue we've thought about before. I don't have a perfect answer, I don't think. So if they want to pay their way, they could do it. If they send enough money to send hundreds of thousands of voters here, they could do that. We'd have to think that progressives would rather live in progressive Massachusetts than move to the colder, more pro-liberty, terrible state of New Hampshire that they hate because it's not progressive. So, but it is a fair question, I think.
Well, I mean, I think if we look at what's going on in places like Florida. Hang on, I'm getting feedback, so I'm just going to mute you while I'm talking, and then I'll let you respond. But if we look at places like Florida and Texas, one of the problems that they're dealing with is now that people in California and New York and all of these failing Democrat states, they're moving to Florida and Texas and not changing their voting habits. And so what's going to happen is those states are going to start to get more and more blue because that's where the Democrats are moving to. So it's like it might be like a problem that there's not a perfect answer to, but it's going to be a problem everywhere, no matter the state. Oh,
yeah, that's a good point. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're good.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, hopefully those who move here would move here for the right reasons, and that's what I think we see the most of. Those who move here from Mass and New York, they're not progressives fleeing who are going to make New Hampshire progressive. They know why they left. They are libertarian or conservative at least, and they move here and they become more libertarian. I've seen a lot of people, myself included, move here as conservative or libertarian, and they become more libertarian the more time they spend around other libertarians here, seeing how it works. So I'm not very afraid of mass, that concept of mass souls move here and mass it up. I think that's not the majority of what's really happening.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. So, Alu, as we kind of wrap up, do you want to make any pitch for why people for reminding people about the rally and the press conference and the committee hearing tomorrow and why they should support secession in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I mean, this bill only gives us a chance to vote. So just let us have a voice to vote. Don't crush our voice. Let us vote on whether to divorce DC. They've been abusive. We have lists of hundreds of reasons really in our books and articles why they've been abusive for decades, for 240 years. And let us have a voice. Don't protect DC politicians from your own voters. So to the state reps out there, if you vote no on this, you're essentially saying, I'm protecting DC bastards from my own constituents because I'm afraid my constituents will hurt DC by divorcing them. So pretty backwards, pretty insane. Email your legislators, email the committee. It's all in the articles. I'll share the articles here, hopefully. Come out to the rally tomorrow. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be awesome. Listen to the press conference. Should be on media. Hopefully, come to the committee. You'll get a chance to speak. Hopefully, there will be another day if enough people show up. They'll have to make a few more days for the hearing to hear everyone. So, yeah. And find me on libertyblock.com. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so guys, make sure you visit Alu's website. That's libertyblock.com. He's got so much great content on there. I do hope that I will be at the rally tomorrow and the press conference and there for the start of the committee hearing. I do have to come back because tomorrow I will be streaming at 5 p.m. We're just going to do me solo tomorrow, but I have a lot of things I want to talk about, including expanding on why Chris Sununu basically said that he wouldn't run for senator because he didn't want Republicans to win, which is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow on Live at 5 on the channel. We also have, let's see, what else do we have coming up? Oh, we've also, of course, got, remember to sign up on activelyunwoke.com for our webinars. And then on Friday, we're going to be on my second YouTube channel, also called Actively Unwoke, youtube.com/activelyunwoke, where we're going to be doing happy hour. And of course, we're going to be watching a woke training. I haven't picked it out yet, but we're going to find a good woke training to watch and make fun of because you guys know more about critical race theory than every conservative pundit out there because we do our homework and we pay attention. I want to thank Alu for coming on the channel today. Alu, always a pleasure to have you. Really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow in Concord. And of course, we'll have you back anytime to talk about secession or anything else you want to talk about because I just think you're a wealth of information and I just enjoy sitting back and knitting and listening. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for all you do. Keep up the awesome work. I'll see you soon.
All right. Well, guys, I'll see you tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Take care. Make sure you mount that like button on your way out the door. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And we'll be back tomorrow at 5. See you soon. Have a good one.